what's the guy's known here? Going to do some after game commentary, and I'll be playing in the background so you can see through it. I might have missed a few minutes of the gameplay with the way that I clip things. I don't record full games. I probably should, but I do them in like 15-minute spans of when I know something cool has happened the last several minutes. Then I just hit the clip thing instead of having to get the full 45 minutes. So might have missed a bit of gameplay here. We'll see when we actually get to that point. But I came up with a good topic of something that I should talk about, and it's really around meta and how to play the game, at least with the early game, and how to be a proper support player. And it just ties in a lot of the aspects of the game into some good info that I think you guys could find useful. So start of the games, it can vary. It depends on what players do. I think that the play is to not just toss your planes out there. Obviously, you can make it work. Obviously, you can have some success, especially on games like, or maps like Baltijsk here, where there's clearly only a couple of roads, and if you get the timing right and you carpet bomb those roads, you're gonna be creating a significant problem for the other team. There's going to be games like that. Once people figure out the timing, people are going to start doing that eventually. I can already understand it, and I already have some ideas of how to figure that stuff out already, but I just don't do it because it's super cheap. So there are ways to be a proper support player, though. So kind of get eyes out, make sure you're saving points. For those that don't know, the amount of points that you have spent at any given moment dictates how many points you earn per tick. So the less units that you have, the more points that you earn. And as far as I know, it's unlimited. I had a game earlier where I was just kind of chilling, and I had like 4,000 points. So it can get up there. It can definitely get up there. Just make sure that you're doing what you can to be as effective as you can. And in my case, it's most certainly air. So get eyes out, get a little bit of recon, get a little bit of AA out there, and then save your points to be able to use planes effectively. Building your plane portion of your deck is a bit intricate. Russia it definitely has the best air when it comes to versatility. There's so many different bombs and so many different effective platforms and things like that, but it does have access to its airborne deck. It should have its best planes because that is its airborne deck. That's the point of it. But for the United States, we just get the Marines, which is kind of a half-assed attempt at both good ground and both good ground and good air. And luckily, we have the F-35 and the F-18's no slouch when it comes to air-to-air. Sure, it has some nice payloads when it comes to bombs and whatnot, but the only bombs that I find, I don't know if effective is the right word, but efficient in the game are laser-guided bombs. So I use the CAB 1500s, I use the CAB 500s, I use the JDAMs, I use the Stormbreakers, and I use the JSOWs. Those are my heaviest hitters. So you just saw me use the CAB 500s, depending on what the timing is like. It should be pretty close. You saw me use the CAB 1500s as well as the CAB 500s. The loadouts, you guys will see the deck at some point, whether it be the beginning of the video or the end or in the description or something. The loadouts that I'm using right now are 2 Su-30 ESMs with 2 CAB 1500s, 2 R-77s, ECM pods, and then the Su-57s with the seed missiles and 2 CAB 500s. So every single plane has a little bit of something to it for everything. So you can shoot down helicopters, you can shoot down planes, you can laser guide the CAB 500s off of the Su-57 onto helicopters. That you can drop the CAB 1500s on whatever you want. If it's the heaviest vehicles, I feel like there's been a bit of balance behind it where they don't do very much damage to heavy vehicles. But of course, if they're anywhere near a helicopter, supplies, support units, whether it be AA or artillery or infantry, it's going to light them up. They're going to not be there anymore, especially when you have 2 of those CAB 1500s. So the gameplay that you're seeing is I'm spending minimal points on the ground. I'm just doing a little bit of support, a little bit of AA, things people might forget about, taking the high ground there in the middle because it's super effective there with the recon and with the AA up there, at least a couple of the Derivitsias up there. And then you're seeing a strike there with the Su-57. Unfortunately, I missed the Koalitsias that they've been pounding my teammate that was on that side. But as you guys are seeing in the background here, there's a couple of little tactics that I use that any war game player has probably used numerous times. as long as you had the fuel and you had the ability to get around on that side of the map. With how wide these maps are, the vast majority of games you're going to be able to do something like that. You use the terrain to your advantage. You duck your planes down low. You come up around the side. Pay attention to, even if you know where AA is, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to kill it, because if the enemy's making a mistake, let them do that, where they're putting these S-300s behind skyscrapers and stuff like that. Now, depending on the timing, you might have just seen my SU-30 die doing S-300 there, but that was a crit, so that was just unlucky there. The first hit just planted it on me there with the crit from the S-300. But this guy, for some reason, maybe because he wanted to seem like it was more defensible or something like that, he was putting the S-300s inside those skyscrapers, and of course they're going to hit the buildings, and it helps me with line of sight. So most of my sorties, most of my bombing runs and stuff like that in this game, I did end up getting away with the Su-57s, and I really put the hurt on them with bombs and things like that. And that's kind of the tactic that I wanted to talk about, because at the end of the video, or at the end of the game, I was still able to buy a bunch of T-15s and still push, because I was able to effectively support my team with recon and AA and air support the entire game, save up a buttload of points, and then at the end spend a chunk of those points on something that is extremely effective, and then also on top of that still be able to buy planes and have the units that I had before still alive between the recon and the AA. So the setup here is damn effective, and when we get American airborne and maybe like a Russian support, something like that, it's going to be pretty scary, because Russian air is already scary because you get the airborne deck. But maybe if there was something that comes along the lines of a little bit better recon or better little weapons teams or unique support units and stuff like that with the Iskanders and the artillery and things like that, I could see a Russian support being pretty dangerous. And then American airborne and American special forces is probably going to be nuts. Neither of the decks that we have right now double up on air. Both of them half-ass air, even though Russia has an airborne. So you get I think it's 1250, your 1250 for your air tab. The armored deck adds nothing to it. I gotta switch over to the new, the second part of this here. So we'll see how much this skips ahead here. Yeah, unfortunately I missed a bit of gameplay there, but it's all right. Kind of get the point here. We pushed up, was able to do some more bombing runs. And luckily, the beginning of this clip here was a nice one with the Su-57. I think I remember this one. Timing it correctly to be able to see and then come around the side and drop them behind some buildings. And I even got a seed run, so I was able to take out some kind of S-300 or something there with the seed missiles and then get the bombs on the other side there. Whoever this was on the other side, the Russian player, or both Russia, this other Russian player kept wanting to drop things there with planes and large helicopters. The thing with that is we can see that. So we can see when you're bringing in large helicopters and planes and stuff like that. So even though I did end up losing a few planes, and I think I lost a couple of T-15s here in a little bit, the effectiveness of being able to support my team because I'm saving points was intense. This would have potentially have been a loss if I hadn't used the bombs the way that I used them at the times that I'd used them the way that I used them. So... And you're going to see here again with these KA-50s. Teammate over here really doesn't have a lot of AA, but because of these cabs, all I got to do is drop them below those helicopters, and those helicopters aren't going to be there much longer. So the whole system here is when you invest into something, it means that you can't invest into other things. You have a limited amount of points. It seems pretty obvious, but it kind of hits hard with this game. So when you go ground, you are ground. Like you buy your few pushes, and then you kind of can't buy planes when you really fully invest to the best units that you have in your deck to really go forward. So you have to really think about, like, what do I need? What is my point value that I change up what I'm doing? And for me, it's around the 1500 mark. So 1500, 250 a pop for those for the T-15s that I like to use a lot because they're so powerful, and then also a lot of times my teammates will be bringing up a lot of tanks. They're not really using fire support too much. They're just using straight up tanks. So T-15s are solid fire support, and of course are pretty much tanks on their own. They really are tanks on their own, just with 57 millimeters and a couple of attackers. While on the subject, in case anybody's listening that was in the comments the other day talking about going to B10s instead and stuff like that, I started messing around. I started testing. Some people were saying, no, use the S300 instead of the Buck. Use the B10s instead of the T-15s. And as always, because of the variety and because of the usefulness of all the different vehicles in this game, you can make a lot of things work. You can make them work. I'm just saying, when I talked about my best deck videos and the units that I choose and why I choose them and things like that, over time, it's the majority of the fights, the majority of the reactions that you get from the other players, the majority of the combat, the survivability, the effectiveness, and all that is taken into account. And the vast majority of time, and I've proven it again myself when I went to go test this, is like, I'll go try out the S300 instead of the Buck. I'll go try out the B10s instead of the T-15s. They just work more. The Bucks, just overall, you get them a bit closer, you're able to move them around a bit better, you're able to hide them a bit better, they get a bit more ammo. For some reason or another, and maybe it's just specifically how I use them, the Bucks are more effective than the S300s. The T-15s are more effective than the B10s. Just that you just do better when you use them. I don't know why, you just do. So that's what I'm kind of talking from. As we're seeing in the background here, I am able to get a bit of stuff done. I was able to put some ATGMs on that. I forgot I did have some ATGMs on my SU-30 there, and these guys were triple and quad stacking the Cornets, which don't seem to care about smoke sometimes, because they just shoot so many. The Cornet M's, they just shoot so many. But once you eliminate them, what you're going to see here in a second, with a couple of Cab 1500s or the Cab 500s, or if you're playing as America, some JDAMs or Stormbreakers or whatever, they're going to be needing to wait for a little while there until they get their Cornets back. So they're going to be hurting. So you need to make sure you take advantage of that. And I probably could have done it a little bit better with getting eyes out and being a little bit more tactful with going at that. Sometimes I just kind of bum rush stuff, even though I know I'm just like, yeah, there's Cornets over there, but screw it. I'll just kind of just throw a T-15 at it and just kind of see where they're at, and then I bomb it. And sometimes the Cornets get through, sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's an extra tank over there, sometimes there isn't. I'm not sweating every single game, even though my point values and even though my KD is always the highest and it's always like top and it's always like really good. It doesn't mean I necessarily sweat and I try the most or I really think hard about situations. Sometimes I just kind of throw stuff at stuff. But as we're coming up to the end here, eventually it'll be popping up on the end here soon. The gameplay that you've seen should probably tell you enough about like the meta that I've found behind using these decks and behind using these units and behind being as effective as possible in the game. So at the beginning, you kind of save up. You find the most effective units that you can, which are the BRMs. I think the BRMs, those recon vehicles, I could be mistaken with the name in there. I think I'm going to click one here in a second. The BRMs, the Duravitsias, the T-15s, get the recon out there, get eyes out, use your planes, use bombs to support your team, get supplies up there if you need to, help them push, save up 1,500 points, get a bit of a pushing force of yourself, and then get into the fight while still being able to buy planes. And make sure that you're using them correctly. I did lose a couple of T-15s. I think I lost 3 planes. These guys were pretty good with AA. But on top of the effectiveness, as we see, I just bombed 2 more Mi-28s there with Cab 500s for laser guiding them with the Su-57. The effectiveness of the planes makes it so they have to invest points. They have to buy AA. They have to try and buy ASFs. So it's not necessarily air spam just as air spam. It's air spam as it's useful because the other team needs to coordinate and plan against it. It's too effective. It's not overpowering, but it's too effective that they need to plan for it. They need to bring AA. They need to figure out ways to combat that and get around that. On top of my teammates pushing effectively on the ground. So it's going to be a bit scary when we get more decks that are really airborne decks, as we have a couple of half-ass choices when it comes to airborne. We'll see when it comes to team compositions. I'm thinking what's going to be extremely dangerous is a 5-stack where everybody's in Discord. 3 people go just ground. Like you bring a bit of recon and maybe you bring a single AA unit, but you really just bring ground and you pay attention to those units and you pay attention to your surroundings and you just keep those alive. And then there's 2 players who are support. Now, that is meaning airborne and AA and artillery. Like they are the support. They're looking at the bigger picture, while people that are pushing on the ground, people that have the most effective units that they can get, are going tree line to tree line, street to street, pushing through. And then on top of that, there are planes that are not the ground players' planes. They don't need to worry about them. There's people that are coordinating and above them and figuring that stuff out. On top of that, they are pushing up some AA behind the lines. I think that's just going to be a just insane setup when it comes to team stacks like that. I think that's going to be the play. I don't play as a team stack. The vast majority of my games, I play solo. I have played a couple, but I don't learn anything. Like I don't get anything out of team stacks. We just roll them. And sometimes even when you're not playing with friends in Discord, you still roll people. So even though if you're a newer player, you're probably going to end up losing a lot, I think you're going to learn a lot by playing alone. Play a couple of games alone. Go at it like you know this is going to be rough. You know you're going to be in trouble here. You know the odds are probably against you, and just kind of see how you do. Obviously, don't do it too often, especially if you're newer. Try and go and jump into the Broken Arrow Discord, jump into my Discord, ask around, try and get some people to communicate with, and ask any questions you have in the comments down here, or come by one of my streams too, if you're interested, because there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to pick up, but there's still a lot to go. There's still a lot we don't understand about this game, and as I'm feeling this out, and as I'm kind of getting more and more experienced, I think I'm starting to figure out a real meta here behind minimal starts, minimal, super effective units, a few things here and there, keep them alive, use your air, use your reconnaissance, don't lose anything, and then just kind of save up your points, and then buy incrementally pushes. Buy 3 units at a time of super effective, efficient units. And then just kind of start whittling them down and whittling them down and whittling them down. And I think that's really the play. I've talked about that a few times. I talked about it in my new player deck, but it's just kind of like in my new player deck video, or like gameplay video. It's just too good. It's too effective. Even as a solo player. But you do need a team around you. You do need people pushing. You need people to support. Support's not going to be as effective if you don't have people to support. So I think the biggest mistakes that some people make when I'm looking at my teammates around, and this is going to be a video, this is going to be a subject for another video too on its own. Biggest mistakes that new players make, and just in general, is you're not resupplying your vehicles. You're not pushing with AA. You're not pushing with recon. And you're bringing too much at one time. There's bringing way too many things just stacking up on top of each other. It's just not worth it. Push a few, see what's going on, back them up, push another few, and just jockey. Don't just doom stack. They're going to go away, whether it's artillery or air or other units that are just getting lucky with their HE and stuff like that. The piling up of units is not effective. 3 at most, push them up, get into a bit of a fight, pull them back, resupply, go again. Keep that in mind. Also, keep up your recon, keep up your AA when you are pushing on the ground. But when you commit to something, make sure that you're committing to it. Make sure you have a full line. Make sure you have a full support system, especially on the ground. And if you're losing a couple planes, then realize you're down, realize you're out of it, and try and switch up strategies. Be a bit maneuverable. Be, on your toes. All right, these guys are obviously, you've brought a lot of AA. The terrain isn't in my favor. I'm going to chill. I'm going to save up some points. I'm going to go to the ground, and then we'll go from there. Or the opposite. Ground's not really working out. I need to just chill. Maybe even refund a few units. Pull back a little bit. Get some air. Whittle them down a little bit. Figure out their weaknesses, and then reattack. Like, go at it again. Some things that I was just thinking about over the last game there, and some gameplay that I think you guys will find as effective. So rewatch what you need to rewatch and see how I went at things. You'll see all the little buttons and stuff that I push, and the way that I go at things. In terms of the mindset that I had this whole time was really just try and be as effective as possible and do the most damage that I can. And that is in terms of AA, and that's in terms of logistics, low-hanging fruit, easy kills, things like that. Just try and be on top of it and try and support my team throughout it. And then it left me space to save up and then buy a push of my own, and then we ended up finishing the game after that. So pretty damn effective. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what else you might want to see. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a nice day. See you guys.